It was one of those late summer afternoons when the heat rose off the blacktop like a ghost and the wind smelled of dust and gasoline. The roar of engines echoed through the small town as the Iron Souls, a group of bikers known more for their loud rides than their gentle hearts, pulled over at a diner just off Highway 47. They weren't saints, and they didn't pretend to be. But there was something about the brotherhood, that unspoken code that said, when someone's in need, you don't ask questions. You just ride. Inside the diner, laughter filled the air as the men unstrapped their helmets. Grease-stained jackets, tattoos that told 100 stories, and eyes that carried the weight of both trouble and loyalty. They were the kind of men who looked dangerous until you saw how they treated the waitress who called them sweetheart. The leader, a man named Tank, was sipping his coffee when a small figure appeared at the door. It was a boy, no older than 8. His face was streaked with dirt, his shirt torn at the shoulder, and his shoes didn't match. He stood there, frozen, as every head turned. Silence swept through the room. The waitress started toward him, but the boy raised a trembling hand and pointed straight at the bikers. "Please, someone help me," he said, his voice shaking. "My mom's in trouble." Tank set his cup down slowly. "What kind of trouble, kid?" The boy swallowed hard. "A man, he's hurting her. He locked her in the trailer. I ran here, I didn't know where else to go." No one moved for a second. Then Tank stood up. His chair scraped the floor, sharp and sudden. "Where's your place?" he asked, his voice calm but low, the kind that meant he wasn't waiting for permission. The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Out by the old mill road. It's a blue trailer. Please, hurry." That was all it took. No questions, no hesitation. Every man in that diner knew what they were about to do. Tank looked at his brothers, Reaper, Diesel, and Hawk, and gave one nod. Helmets on, engines fired. The sound of thunder filled the air as 8 bikes tore down the road like a storm born from steel and anger. The boy climbed onto Tank's bike, clutching his leather vest like his life depended on it. And in a way, it did. The road stretched long and lonely, dust kicking up behind them as the boy shouted directions over the roar of the wind. The other bikers followed close, faces hard, jaws clenched. Each mile that passed only added fuel to the fire burning in their chests. When they reached the trailer, the boy pointed. "There, that's it." Tank slowed his bike and took in the sight. A small, beat-up trailer half hidden behind weeds, a broken window, and a man's voice shouting from inside. The boy's hands tightened around him, his breath shaky. "That's him," he whispered. Tank handed the boy off to Hawk and walked straight to the door. The others spread out, forming a line that looked more like an army than a club. The shouting inside grew louder, followed by a crash, a woman's cry. Tank's patience vanished. One hard kick and the door flew open. The man inside froze. He was tall, mean-looking, and smelled of liquor. In one hand, he held a beer bottle, in the other, a woman's wrist. Her face was bruised, eyes swollen from crying. "Who the hell are you?" the man barked. Tank stepped forward, his boots echoing on the metal floor. "We're the people who don't like men who hurt women," he said quietly. Before the man could respond, Diesel grabbed him by the collar and yanked him backward, sending the bottle crashing to the floor. The woman gasped and stumbled, falling into Reaper's arms. Tank crouched beside her. "You okay, ma'am?" She nodded weakly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "My son. Where's my boy?" "Safe," Tank said. "He came to get us." When she heard that, she broke down completely. Outside, the boy ran to her, and she pulled him into her arms, shaking but smiling through tears. The bikers stood around them in silence, the engine still running like guardians keeping watch. The man was on the ground, groaning. He tried to stand, but Hawk's boot made sure he didn't. Tank leaned down. "You ever touch her again, you'll answer to us. Understand?" The man spat on the ground, but Tank didn't flinch. He just walked back to his bike, pulled out his phone, and called the sheriff. "Yeah," he said, "you got a domestic out by the mill road. The guy's waiting for you, and he's sober now." They didn't wait for thanks or attention. They never did. But when the woman came up to Tank, holding her boy's hand, she whispered, "You saved us. I don't even know your name." He smiled faintly. "Doesn't matter. Just promise me one thing. Never let that kid think nobody listens when he speaks." Then they rode away, engines roaring against the dying sun. Dash dash dash. The next morning, the story spread across town like wildfire. The sheriff told the newspaper how a group of outlaws had saved a woman from her abusive husband. The town was divided, half of them shocked, half of them proud. But the bikers didn't care about what people said. They never rode for applause. Back at their garage, Tank was cleaning his bike when the boy appeared again. This time, he was clean, wearing a new shirt that was a size too big. He walked up shyly, holding something in his small hands, a paper drawing. "I made this for you," he said. Tank took it. The picture showed 8 motorcycles and a smiling boy in the middle. Underneath, in shaky handwriting, it read, "My heroes." Tank swallowed hard. He wasn't used to being called that. He'd spent years trying to outrun his past. Prison time, lost friends, a life full of mistakes. But that moment, that small piece of paper in his rough hands, it was redemption in its purest form. "You keep that spirit, kid," he said softly. "The world needs more brave hearts like yours." The boy grinned. "And more people like you." Tank watched as the boy and his mom drove away in a borrowed car, the trailer behind them now just a memory. The road stretched ahead, endless and free, like the promise of a second chance. That night, as the club gathered around the fire, Diesel broke the silence. "Never thought we'd be playing heroes," he muttered. Reaper smirked. "Guess even devils have their good days." Tank stared into the flames, thinking about that little boy running through the dust, desperate to save his mother. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "it takes a kid's cry to remind men what they're supposed to be." The fire crackled, the wind howled, and for the first time in a long while, every man there felt something they hadn't felt in years: peace. Dash dash dash. Months passed. The seasons changed, and life rolled on like the wheels of their bikes. But some memories don't fade. They stay etched into your soul like scars. One evening, Tank got a letter. No return address, just his name scribbled in uneven handwriting. Inside was a photo, the boy and his mother, smiling in front of a small new house. At the bottom, it said, "We're safe. Because of you." Tank stared at it for a long time, the corners of his eyes glistening under the dim light. He pinned the photo on the wall of the clubhouse, right above the motto painted years ago. "Ride hard, help harder." That night, when the club took to the highway again, they didn't ride for fun. They rode for purpose. The wind carried that unspoken vow between them, that whenever someone cried for help, no matter who, no matter where, they wouldn't wait a second. Because that's what family does. And, though they were men of the road, scarred, wild, misunderstood, they were also protectors in leather jackets, angels disguised in grease and steel. Some people said they were trouble. But that night, under the roar of the engines and the glow of the moon, they proved something the world often forgets, that even the roughest souls can carry the softest hearts. Dash dash dash. It's easy to judge a man by his scars, by the way he dresses, or the rumble of his bike. But every scar has a story, every engine a reason. Those bikers didn't wear halos, yet that day, they earned wings no one could see. When a boy said, "My mom's in trouble," they didn't wait a second, and in doing so, they reminded us all that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes, they wear leather.